Right, guys, welcome to the latest episode of Tyron and Reis Real Estate Podcast. So I'm joined with Anthony Coker. So Anthony, I think anyone who's kind of been either around property or on social media would have had their head buried in the sand if they hadn't seen all the properties you've been listed. If you could just give a bit of an introduction of kind of who you are, where you're based, for those that don't know you. Yeah. And, I think that'd be a good place to start.
Okay, well, my name is Anthony Coker. I'm based in central London primarily, but I obviously work in and around London, dealing with properties. I've been doing this for about 5 months now.
Yeah, it's not been a great deal of time, but you've picked it up. Certainly, I mean, in the last 3 months, it's really started picking up some speed now. And I mean, some of the listings now, I know you've just sort of, listed one at 6 million, one at 12 million. You've got some really high value properties coming on. And one of the performance measures to really note is last month, you went to 21 market appraisals and listed 21 houses, which is definitely a record in the company. So I definitely say there's got to be some turning points that have happened. Yeah. What do you think some of those I guess tweaks and turning points for you have been within the last 2 or 3 months?
I think for me, it's just more dedicating more of my time and efforts to trying to reach the goals that I set myself. So, and I think that it's something detrimental that you said was about filling pipelines. So I just thought I've taken that and just run with that, filling the pipeline. And ever since I started doing it, I didn't really want to take my foot off the pedal because you're getting the momentum, and I kind of got a strategy that I use that works for me. So then I just keep on implementing that and using that to just build the business.
Absolutely. I think that's a great sort of point, really. For me, there are a few different facets of real estate that you have to become an expert at. I think we've discussed it in kind of other podcasts, other training sessions. We've got to be chief marketers. We've got to be able to negotiate sales. We've got to be able to hold meetings face-to-face with sellers. We've got to be able to deliver value. We've got to be able to do all these different things, plus a load more. But to be successful in the industry, you've got to have a consistent flow of properties that you're listing, that you're then putting in a proper strategy in place to then convert that listing into a sale to get the owners the best possible price. And I think if you don't get the first part right, certainly anyone who's kind of starting out in real estate or is in their first year, that's the first thing you've got to master. You've got to master getting that pipeline full of property, which is effectively full of opportunity. And the only way you do that is by mastering prospecting. So prospecting for me, what do you think, if you could say to somebody who is potentially either starting out Tyron and Reis Real Estate or in real estate in general, what would you say are some key things that someone's got to really double down or knuckle down on when it comes to prospecting in order to get some decent numbers?
I think first of all, it's about getting out there, putting yourself in front of vendors, and kind of getting a feel for what it is that you're dealing with here. Yeah. Then you've got to, I think you need to understand what it is that you're selling. You need to understand what your value is and what you can actually bring to the table. Because it's all well and good knocking 100 doors, but if you don't know what you're knocking the doors for or what you're trying to sell, then you're just a busy fool, as you would say. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think it's so true. I think I remember certainly it just makes me laugh because in certain earlier stages in the business, I remember explaining to people that they needed to knock these doors and showing them what to do, but they didn't actually know why they were knocking them. And I know that sounds so ridiculous, but and they go, well, I've knocked 200 doors. I'm like, we're not paying you per door knock. You don't work for Avon. It's like you need to speak to these, and these sellers need to understand why they need to have a meeting with us for us to sell the houses. And that is exactly it. And I remember asking everyone a question, which I think anyone should, even whether they're in our company or whether they're working for another company. The question that should always that every agent should ask themselves is, would they 110%, if they were a client, would they 110% list their property with themselves? And I know that's that everyone go, well, yeah, of course, but but
that's a good question.
Yeah, genuinely.
And I think that most people probably wouldn't, because they're not, what they're selling or whatever is the service that they're saying that they offer, they don't believe in it themselves. They don't believe that they're going to be able to do that.
You were saying not long ago, weren't you?
Yeah.
What was it? And fill in the gaps for me. But I remember you said you were in a market appraisal and there was another estate agent kind of finishing up.
Yeah.
So you were sort of in the background or whatever, and you were getting a bit of a wind of what they were saying to this owner.
Yeah.
And what were the sort of things you were hearing?
Well, in terms of the door knock. So this was a.
I was in a
market.
and there was a door knock.
Yeah, and there was a door knock. So it was a market. Someone trying to book a market appraisal with the vendor.
Yeah.
But they were kind of just fabricating too much stuff. I can't remember word for word what they were saying, but I just think they were too pushy, they were too salesy, and they didn't actually have any value to bring to anything. So they just made up things that was just.
I've got loads of buyers that are ready to buy the house now.
Exactly,
now. That's
buyers,
a classic.
We can sell it in 7 days for far more than anyone else can, but how they can't answer that question.
Yes.
I mean, there's a certain level to what you can do and what you can't do, right?
Yes.
And if somebody's going to say to somebody that I can do this, then you need to explain to them how you're able to do this. I don't mean having to explain that on the door, but there has to be some kind of indication. You can't just throw out numbers that you can say you can get for someone, because there's no substance behind where you're going to get those numbers from. So for me, for example, before I even go into like a market appraisal, I need to do proper due diligence to find out what the actual property value is and where it sits and how I'm going to be able to achieve a price that I'm going to tell a vendor that I am going to achieve.
I think that's brilliant. I think one of the words that really stuck out for me there was substance. I think substance is something that as an industry as a whole, certainly in the UK, it lacks massively, but I think worldwide it lacks it really. I think when I was speaking to the American chap who did the Zoom call with all the session, and he said 97% of realtors fail in the US, and I'd imagine from a self-employed or entrepreneurial basis, it's probably a similar fallout rate across the business across the business in the UK. Substance for me, it aligns itself with a few things. Substance for me is about somebody who, first of all, has some sort of value, like you said, to offer that vendor. So that's not just saying, oh yeah, I can sell your house. Well, how? Why? Like, why should I listen to you? Okay, so you've got credibility in what you or your company has done as a whole. Yeah. Because it's one thing knocking on someone's door and you're a one-man band and your company's done absolutely nothing. It's another thing being part of a company that's effectively done hundreds of millions of pounds of sales. We did nearly £40 million of sales agreed last month. So you can go anywhere in any prime and super prime area of the UK and start waving numbers around like that. Well, how do you do £40 million of sales in a month? Well, I'll tell you how you do it. You do it with a strategy that actually bloody works. And then when you demonstrate that strategy, then they'll see that there's substance. Now, there's an initial conversation you've got to have where, because you can grab someone's attention easy by throwing wild statements around. Yeah. We can sell your house in 7 days. We've got multiple buyers waiting. Blah, 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 blah. No worries. Come over Tuesday. Yeah. Tuesday comes and you've got nothing to show them.
Exactly.
And that's where the substance goes, which is what you're saying, isn't it? Yeah. So I think substance is a great word because it comes from a multitude of factors. Are you and your business prominent in drawing buyers and attention through social media strategy? So are you ahead of the curve? When you do get that attention, has that resulted or does that result in multiple buyers coming through the door to be able to buy the property? Okay, you say it has, but what has your company done? Oh, okay, so you've done hundreds of millions of pounds of sales. Brilliant. So that links the two. That's what creates the substance. Yeah. So that explained in the most effective way by the agent or an agent speaking to an owner is what gives them enough value that we're speaking about to then sign the contract and list with us. Yeah. And that is what the industry lacks.
I think that essentially this point I'm going to make here is just across the board with anything. And I think the main thing that sets us apart from other agents is obviously the way that we sell things. Like, we've been able to move with the times. People buy things differently these days, as opposed to how it was before. Like, if the high streets are getting 50% less people through the doors, then the agencies are obviously going to get that same amount. So now I think what puts us in a good position is that we dominate the internet. Yes. And the internet is how people are buying things these days.
Absolutely.
So I think that just understanding that point primarily is going to be a plus point to to how we sell things and how the reach we are able to get and how we're able to get the maximum value.
Oh, 100%. And I also think that, because there's two prongs to the approach. So what I really kind of pride myself on, certainly from a personal aspect, if I ever speak to a seller, is that like we will outmarket, we will outperform on every social media platform, on Rightmove, on Zoopla, on the websites, whatever it might be, whether it's Instagram, LinkedIn, TikTok, who knows? It'll be a combination of all of it, basically. Yeah. But then I also know that there are other agents that are on, social media is now not, it's not a hidden treasure.
Yeah.
Everybody's on it on some level or another. So where our expertise comes in and where our substance comes in is that what do we do with that attention? Because it's all it is attention, really. An inquiry is attention, a view is attention, a comment is attention, a DM is attention, it's attention. What are we doing with that attention? Well, 99% of agents don't know how to then really transfer that attention into solid buyers, into buyers that are subsequently interested in buying the property, are making offers with a view to purchase the house. That's what we're here to do.
Yeah.
I can wave millions of numbers of viewing numbers and likes and all this sort of stuff, but it's like being rich in Monopoly. It means absolutely fuck all. It really does.
You have to know what to do with that and how to funnel it into the relevant places.
100%, and that's where the substance comes back into it, because then it's like, right, so how come some people can be part of a brand that's nationally recognised, that's got all the credibility of all the sales, and another person has the same tools and they get the same attention from a listing, but why does one person perform better than the other? Well, that's because that person has, is better at it, and that's where the substance comes in. Like for me, I pride myself on the process. The thing for me is that what I love is that when that attention comes through, I already know the next moves. I already know, right, when that person's made that offer, and then I've got 8 offers on the table from an open house of 27 buyers, and I've got a report that's more comprehensive than the vendor's ever seen in his life, and then I go through it chapter and verse to the point where he understands where it's sitting in the market, the pound per square foot data, all the evidence of the feedback, why the feedback sits in there, how that relates to the market's current climate, and then what the lowest offer is, feedback to that offer, resulting in all of the offers building up to the absolute highest offer, and then whether or not or why they should take that offer in regards to how that's going to affect them in the market. This is all a process started from exactly when we launched the property, and that attention and that information and that data coming through. And I think one of the things that probably any seller, and I know you certainly, I think you eloquently put it, regularly to sellers, is that, when they're coming into contact with Tyron and Reis Estate, yes, that we are, we've been described as probably the noisy neighbours at the start, but the reality is it's built on a structure of serious process and knowledge and substance. Would you agree?
I agree with that, but I haven't really come into too much contact with that kind of feedback, because by the time I finish speaking to a vendor, they don't really give me that as a objection. Brilliant. As such, because I think that the value that's being given, I'm very intricate with it. As you've said, from the minute I've even knocked on the door, or from the minute I've done any prospecting, I already know exactly what I want from it and exactly what value I can bring to it. I do the research and I present the information as you just explained from the beginning to the end. I just need the people in the room to be able to present it.
That's exactly what it's about, and that's what I love, because you can't go to 21 market appraisals and list 21 houses if you're not if you're not delivering it like that. You can only get lucky a few times.
People might think it's luck, you've done this, or they might be in the right scenario, right place, right time. But that doesn't continue to happen.
No, you can't. Lightning can't keep striking, can it? That's the reality. And I think for me, one of the interesting things is now it's building up to, okay, the year will finish okay, but as you've picked up the speed, because we know that real estate works in kind of 3 to 4 month cycles. The hard work you put in on month 1, the fruitions will come through in month 3, month 4, month 5. It's just how it works. It's a slow burner, but like with anything worth having in life, it doesn't happen overnight.
Exactly.
What do you foresee for yourself in 2023?
I just want to bring as much properties onto the market as possible, get as much properties sold, help vendors and clients manage their expectations, and build my business, build it as big as it can. And I don't really have a limit on where I want to take it. So for me, I'm only just at the beginning stage of this journey. So my expectations and my goals are very high. So therefore, this is not even a drop in the ocean for me.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
That's what it's got to be. I think that, you know, it's funny that, like, you know, some people, they either have an entrepreneurial brain, they have a corporate or a PAYE brain. It's like, I know people who have been in real estate in our business, you know, I'll speak openly about it, and, you know, they've not done much for the first 3 or 4 months. Then the month 5, month 6, month 7, they've started getting money in. Yeah. And then what they've done is, instead of thinking, oh, the last 3 months I've just earned myself 20 grand, what they've said is, I've worked for 9 months and only earned 20 grand. But that's not true. No. You've only worked for 3 months. The other 6 months was you learning because you didn't know what a fucking leasehold or a freehold was. Do you know what I mean?
Because there is so much to learn in this industry. That you're constantly learning, I think. And I think that up until this point, there's still a lot that I have to learn. I understand some parts of it, but the more people you meet, the more rapport you build, the more angles you're going to see, and the more ways you're going to learn to deal with things and deal with the goods and the bads of things. Because it's not just a clear-cut, fun journey. Do you understand? There is, if you're not prepared to take the bad, then you can't expect the good.
Oh, 100%, 100%. And, you know, you can bet your bottom dollar that, like, it will throw things at you, which is why I always like that the journey starts with prospecting, it starts with door knocking, it starts with head-on conversations, because the reality is it's kind of priming you for what are going to be some very challenging conversations that come up later on. You know, when you think about, you know, an offer coming in that's maybe not quite where it needed to be, or it might be that, you know, you've got a buyer and a seller arguing about move-in dates, or, you know, someone's challenging you on a fee, or whatever it might be. There's just so many head-on conversations and situations that you have to be in that why not start it with getting head-on conversations going about listing people's houses, because that's what builds your character very, very early on.
Definitely.
And, you know, what do you think what do you think are going to be sort of the main areas or locations you're going to be targeting as you go in, and where do you think people are going to see a lot of business coming up from you?
I think in and around London, to be fair, and I'm just going to use in and around London as a span.
It's a dense area, you know. And you know, with regards to kind of I know it's like, okay, you know, you don't want to attach it to a number or anything like that, but have you got a target that you've set yourself maybe for like June next year or middle of next year, where you think, do you know what, I want to have earned this much by this time, or I want to have sold this much by this time?
I haven't set a target on how much I want to earn in terms of a date.
Okay.
But I do. How can I answer this? This is a good question, because I haven't really actually thought about this. I'm just going to go much. Right. I'd say I want to earn the maximum I can.
You should be a politician.
That's my answer. Yeah.
I think, like, do you know what always worked for me was I always remember, to be fair, I had the goal of a Lamborghini when I was working in Connell's estate agents, when I was working as a sales negotiator. I remember my mum, like, trying not to laugh, because I was young. I was like in my early 20s, like, if I sell this many houses, and I had this, I mean, showing my age now, but I had the paper auto trader, because there was no app then. And I had like these Ferraris on there and all this sort of stuff. And, you know, I'll be able to buy it in 5 years or whatever it was. Yeah. And, you know, that never changed. I remember like one guy messaging me about 8 months ago, 7 months ago. And he said, I worked with you in an office in Bletchley. Yeah. And he goes, and I didn't even remember this. I swear to God, I didn't remember this. And he goes, I remember working next to you. And I didn't really remember, I sort of vaguely remembered him. And he said, and I had a picture of a black Lamborghini on my desk then. And I always was obsessed with that car. I was always like, because it was such a ridiculous car. And I remember seeing one drive past me once in London. Yeah. And it was like I couldn't breathe when I saw it. It was just the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen. Yeah. It was like my mind was like exploding.
I know the feeling.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like
definitely.
I can't. There's certain things in my life where I see them, and I can't. My brain's not comprehending what I've just seen. And I saw this car, and the noise and the attention and the way it looked. I think it was a Murcielago at the time, or a Gallardo. It was one or two. Oh my God, I just never forget it. Yeah. And I just couldn't understand how that was a car And then I looked at the price of it, and it was now what amazes me, even when I like drive in my car, it's like what amazes me is that like if I drive my car down the street, a kid as young as 3 years old will tap their mum or dad on the shoulder and go, and you'll see them say like, look at that car, or Lamborghini, and you'll hear them scream Lamborghini. 5 years old, 6 years old. That's what happened to me.
Because it's a car of someone's dreams.
It's so nuts when you see it. And it's like, so that was always my thing, is I was obsessed with that car because it was the unobtainable car.
Yeah.
And when you actually reverse engineer a process, like for me now, what happened to me was I went into the Romans garage. My brother was looking at different cars, and they had a Bugatti, not the Chiron, the Veyron, but yeah. And what a car! And I just thought this is ridiculous. So I was like, so I got the sales guy. I said, all right, I said, just give me the numbers on this. Like, give me the numbers on this car, like because. It's a Bugatti. You know they're worth 2 million quid, 2.5 million quid. But what are the numbers? Like, how do you buy this car? He goes, right, and he goes, these are the numbers. So he said, you need to put £500,000 deposit. He goes, it gets better. He goes, 500 grand deposit is roughly about 10, 11 grand payments a month, right? That's just you run like your finance or whatever. So I'm there like reverse engineering it and all that sort of stuff. And he goes, but this is the clincher. He says, when you buy a Bugatti, you have to, even if a truck picks it up and drives it to your garage, and the wheels don't even turn, right? And you just land it in your garage. You don't touch it for a whole year, right? It just sits in your garage. You still, by their rules of Bugatti, you have to get it serviced by Bugatti. Now, okay, that's fine, but a service with Bugatti means all 4 tyres get changed, all 4 brake pads and discs get changed, plus the full service. And it's a minimum cost of about £78,000 a year. So you've got a service cost of just under £80,000 a year, even if you don't drive it.
Yeah, that is ridiculous. But even if you don't drive it.
It's mind-blowing.
But it's still relative to the car's value, isn't it?
Yes.
Like, at the end of the day, for someone like me, that just sounds ridiculous. But for someone who can actually buy a Bugatti, I think you've got to expect something like that. Do you know what I mean?
Well, it's just nuts. And then you think, well, everything's relative to your actions. And like what I love is just like the challenge of business and the challenge of attaching it to something. And it will always be like, for me, it will always be that it's not actually about the car. Like the Lamborghini, I love, like because it's got a very strong sentimental value to me. But that's not about the fact that it's a Lamborghini. My friend had a Lamborghini. I didn't have a sentimental value to his car. I didn't care. I like mine much more than his. That's because it's mine. And like, it's about the fact that it was that kid in an estate agent's who had a picture of it on his desk, and that's what that represents for me. And I always sort of say to anyone who's kind of clawing their way into business, is in those first 1 to 2 years. Even if it's just like I said to my brother, I was like, pick a car you want. Just pick it, get the costs of it, of how much it costs. Because I can give you the cost now. If you wanted to buy a 180 grand Ferrari or a Lamborghini, it'll cost you about 45 grand down, and it'll cost you about 2 grand to 2,300 a month.
Yeah.
Insurance will be about a couple of grand a year. It's very achievable. And
I do have a vision board with a number of cars, houses, different items and things that I would want. So there is I do have a goal. I just haven't chosen exactly what it is.
You dress very well, so all I can think is that a supercar would complement your outfits
100%.
very well.
I'd love supercar. I just my specific supercar, I'm not quite sure what that one is yet.
Remember you putting a Countach in?
Yeah,
that's a beautiful car.
That is a really nice car.
I think that old one will take some serious maintenance though, won't it?
Yeah, definitely.
Because it's an antique almost, but it's so beautiful. Like I saw one parked in Mayfair, and it is just the most unbelievable car.
Yeah, it's a beautiful car. I do like Aston Martins as well.
Oh yeah,
Aston Martins are very nice.
I could see you in an Aston Martin, James Bond.
Why not? Eh?
So I reckon, I think the first things first is I just want to take my hat off to you and say, like, the last 3-4 months' performance has been absolutely unbelievable.
Thanks.
But I don't mean unbelievable in like a shocked way. I just mean that it's clear you're applying some serious knowledge into what the actions that you're doing now. And I think that a lot of people now, certainly in the business and outside of the business, are taking a massive note of what you're doing. I've been blown away by it. And I think that, now is the fun part, because now's the tweaking. Now's where you get yourself in conversations. I know we were talking about one the other day, just with regards to offers coming in and different properties being sold. This is where the skill set comes in.
Definitely.
It is. It's where the fun starts.
Yeah, and it's a constant journey, and it's a constant thing that's happening, because I am dealing with multiple properties and multiple offers and multiple open houses. So the funny thing is, I had a conversation with one of our colleagues in the company, and they said that they got like 1 or 2 listings up, and then they're like, I'm just going to take a bit of a break because it's Christmas now. And I'm thinking to myself, if you're prepared to take a break and you've only got like two listings running, and I'm thinking that I haven't even started yet, then you can see what's going wrong here and why you're in that position, and
make
your
sure you give me their name after.
But it's about a mindset, isn't it? It's about your mindset,
of course it
about
is.
what you want. And I think if you can't aim high enough, then how are you ever going to achieve what you want to achieve? It's like what you said once. If those 2 properties fall out, then you're left with nothing.
You're fucked. It's just nuts, because it's like the hardest bit is getting it off the ground. Then when you get it off the ground, it's just maintenance.
Yeah.
Because what you do is you get like a stockpile of, let's just say it was like 30 listings or 20 listings or 25 listings, right? What happens is they're all going to be going through marketing and open house processes and negotiating processes, and you're going to have this pile like that moves like this.
Yeah.
And it's going to be like, you're going to consistently have like 20 consistent listings on, or 18 consistent listings on, and you're going to get the odd 1 or 2 that are going to drop off. You're going to get new listings, you're going to get stuff that you've sold, stuff that you've exchanged on. But you're only ever really having to list like anything from 4 to 6 a month after that. It's like maintenance.
Definitely. For me, I don't even notice if somebody says or something falls through. Okay, it fell through. It makes no difference to me.
No.
As well as even if I'm going into a market appraisal and I'm trying to sell my services to somebody, it's not even as much of selling my services to someone. It's more of, would you like to use me as your agent? Because this is what I can bring to the table. And if you don't feel like I can bring that to the table, I don't need to sell it to them too much, because I already know that I can just deal with something else.
100%.
So yeah,
100%. And look, I think there's going to be a huge year ahead for you. So, for anyone looking to list and sell their luxury property, Anthony's on fire at the moment, so he'll be a good person to get in touch with. His Instagram is attached. So yeah, thanks for joining me, Anthony. I really appreciate it, mate.
Thanks for everything.
Top man. Appreciate it.